Hey guys, let's get more news about Steelers, but first, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Russell Wilson messages Mike Tomlin publicly as Steelers play waiting game. Pittsburgh Steelers head coach Mike Tomlin received a shout-out from Russell Wilson on social media. Just as it started to seem like free agent quarterback Russell Wilson might be souring on the Pittsburgh Steelers job, the veteran sent a very public message to head coach Mike Tomlin on his Instagram story. "Happy birthday, Coach Tomlin," Wilson wrote, along with 2 folded hands emojis and 2 photos of himself and Tomlin embracing on the football field. Steelers Depot also shared the post for fans and followers on X. While a birthday shout-out doesn't necessarily represent that all is forgiven between Wilson and the Steelers, it might act as an olive branch in this scenario. Wilson could have texted Tomlin privately or reached out to him with a phone call. But instead, he dressed it up for his 5.6 million Instagram followers to see. That isn't totally insignificant, just like the quote Wilson posted on his story the other day probably wasn't totally insignificant either. As it stands, Wilson is waiting on the Steelers to make a decision at quarterback, but according to the Athletic staff and lead NFL insider Dianna Russini on March 15, Pittsburgh is stuck playing the waiting game too, except they're holding out hope that 4-time NFL MVP Aaron Rodgers chooses their offer in free agency. So, what's the holdup? Rodgers is hoping to sign with the Minnesota Vikings, The Athletic revealed in an article on Saturday. Rodgers has been targeted by the Steelers and New York Giants but has essentially put both teams on hold while he waits for clarity regarding the Vikings situation, The Athletic clarified later. If Minnesota ceases to be an option, it's also possible that Rodgers will turn down both the Steelers, a 2024 playoff team, and Giants and instead opt for retirement. Wilson would presumably still be a fallback plan if Rodgers ends up snubbing the Steelers, either for the Vikings, Giants, or retirement. In fact, longtime Pittsburgh beat reporter Mark Kaboly stated that he believes there is a high chance of Wilson re-signing if Rodgers does not join the organization in free agency. "I think that's high," Kaboly said on a spot with 93.7 The Fan's Austin Beck told on March 15, regarding the odds of the Steelers pivoting to Wilson. "I think that's 80% if not more." Kaboly also noted that if Wilson does return, he thinks the 2024 starter would walk in here like he was their number 1 guy, all along. The veteran beat writer was less confident that the Steelers would pursue Kirk Cousins via trade, as it now appears Cousins will not be released. ESPN NFL insider Jeremy Fowler reported that Wilson is ready to sign on live television on March 15 via Steelers Depot, but for now, he awaits the decision of Rodgers like everyone else. Also within the Athletic Saturday article was a note on Rodgers' expected compensation. Rodgers, in the wake of his release by the New York Jets, is seeking an annual salary in the same general range as Sam Darnold's, though that's not expected to be a major stumbling block. Darnold just signed with the Seattle Seahawks, earning $33.5 million per year. Expect Rodgers to command a similar amount if he does land with the Steelers in 2025, or anywhere else. DK Metcalf already feeling the love from new Steelers teammates. Despite being a Pittsburgh Steeler for just over a week, wide receiver DK Metcalf is already connecting with the guys he'll share a sideline with in 2025. "Sitting down with Cam Hayward reach out to me," he told Matthews for the team's YouTube channel. "Pat Freiermuth reached to me. And Calvin Austin, 3, reached out to me. Just told me how excited they were that I was joining the team." A defensive captain, team leader, and face of the franchise, it's no surprise to hear Hayward quickly welcomed Metcalf to the team. He's done plenty of recruiting over the years, helping to convince Russell Wilson to sign and making a pitch to Darius Slay in 2023 even though a last-second decision kept the latter in Philadelphia. NFL rules prohibited Hayward from recruiting Metcalf before the trade, but once announced, it sounds like Hayward was the first to contact him. It's no surprise to hear Freiermuth and Austin do the same. two offensive players who will join Metcalf on the field for a Steelers offense that must improve from its ugly 2025 finish. Freiermuth has focused on being a leader, something first evident in training camp a summer ago. Like Metcalf, he's here for the long term, fresh off a 2024 extension. The attention George Pickens and Metcalf will receive could create favorable matchups for Freiermuth and Austin. "I just reached out with the same excitement that I can't wait to be back in Pittsburgh with them," Metcalf said of his reply to the trio. "Just get to know all the rest of my teammates." Metcalf will join his teammates later this spring during OTAs, which begin in mid-late May. Though optional, attendance is normally high, and Metcalf will surely be there to work with whomever his new quarterback is, even if it's the returning Russell Wilson, his QB in Seattle. Mandatory minicamp will be held in June. Steelers could sign longtime rival QB if Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson fall through. Quarterback Joe Flacco has been a Pittsburgh Steelers nemesis throughout his career, serving as the starter for the rival Baltimore Ravens from 2008 to 2018, when he was eventually supplanted by Lamar Jackson. While he hasn't started more than 8 games in a year since leaving Baltimore, Flacco's not ready to hang up his cleats just yet, and according to Pro Football Talk's Mike Florio, he could be in play for the QB job in Pittsburgh. The Steelers have primarily been attached to 2 other veterans, Aaron Rodgers and last year's Pittsburgh starter, Russell Wilson. However, there's no guarantee that they come away with either player. Rodgers could sign with the Minnesota Vikings or stay in the New York metropolitan area and play for the Giants, while Wilson is in the mix for the Giants and Cleveland Browns. If they strike out, Flacco could provide a more affordable and very familiar option, Florio reports. He is also in the mix for roles with the Browns and Vikings. The former Super Bowl MVP has had a very interesting post-Ravens career, starting 28 total games across brief stints with the Denver Broncos, New York Jets, Philadelphia Eagles, Cleveland Browns and Indianapolis Colts. His tenure with the Browns, another AFC North team, was particularly notable as he went 4-1 stepping in for Deshaun Watson as starter, leading Cleveland to the playoffs and winning the NFL Comeback Player of the Year award. His 24 stint with the Colts was less successful. Flacco went 2-4 splitting time with Anthony Richardson, with 1,761 yards, 12 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions. He did throw for 2 touchdowns in a 27-24 win over the Steelers in September, so Mike Tomlin and company are still very aware of what Flacco, who turned 40 last month, can still bring to a team. And you, fan? What do you think about Joe Flacco's situation? Write to us in the comments.